There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than thunder. When the heavens grow quiet after you've been wounded, betrayed, abandoned, or falsely accused, it can feel as though God has turned his face away. But make no mistake, divine silence is not divine absence. It is divine strategy. When God grows quiet, it is often because he has already issued the decree, and that decree is justice. The enemy that hurt you, yes, the one who smiled while stabbing you in the back, who mocked your innocence, who took advantage of your loyalty, who slandered your name in secret, they are now in a losing battle. Not because you raised your hand, not because you sought revenge, but because God fights for those he has chosen. And when he fights, the battle is no longer fair. You see, when God steps in to vindicate, he does not need a megaphone. He doesn't need to hold a press conference. He moves in silence. He dismantles the proud in ways that confound the wise. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. The enemy who once felt untouchable, who strutted with arrogance, believing they had the upper hand over you, is now standing on shaking ground. But the downfall isn't loud, it's strategic, it's surgical, and it's quiet. This is the kind of judgment that doesn't make headlines, but shatters legacies. The kind that doesn't start with thunder, but ends in silence. The kind where resources dry up, doors close, influence disappears, and relationships that once sustained them turn cold. This is what happens when someone lays a hand on a chosen vessel of divine purpose. There's a wisdom in the silence of heaven. You cried out for justice. You waited for retribution, but nothing seemed to happen until you started noticing the subtle shifts. Their name no longer carries weight. Their plans seem to fall apart before they begin. Their health falters. Their connections fail, and their joy evaporates. This is not coincidence. This is divine withdrawal. God knows how to touch the root of a person's success and make it rot without anyone knowing what happened. Psalm 37:12-13 tells us, the wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. Let that settle in your spirit. While you were suffering silently, heaven was laughing, not because your pain was amusing, but because your victory was already in motion. Your silence wasn't weakness. Your tears weren't wasted. Your patience was not in vain. God was building a case in the unseen realm. He was stacking the evidence, letting the enemy build their own gallows like Haman did in the days of Esther. He was allowing them enough rope to hang their own pride, because when God judges quietly, it is always precise and permanent. The most terrifying reality for your enemies is that their loss is happening behind closed doors. No one can come to their rescue because no one sees what's happening. And the reason is simple. God has removed their covering. What sustained them before no longer works. Their words fall flat. Their manipulation fails. Their alliances crumble. Why? Because the hand of God is now against them. You didn't have to fight back. You didn't have to expose them. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Your stillness became your weapon. Your refusal to stoop to their level became your victory march. You honored your integrity, and because of that, the heavens honored you. Those who hurt you assumed your silence was defeat. They thought because you didn't retaliate, you were broken. But in truth, your silence was filled with strength, and in that strength, you were protected. There is a powerful dignity in restraint. Because while they were busy plotting, scheming, and gossiping, you were becoming, you were evolving, you were rising quietly, steadily, divinely. And now tables are turning. You're walking into rooms that they once tried to lock you out of. You're being favored in places they swore you'd never reach, and they can't stop it because the anointing on your life was never theirs to control. Let this be a word for those still in the valley. If you are suffering in silence, if you've been betrayed by those you loved, if you've been wounded by the very people you trusted, know this: heaven saw it all, and heaven is responding, not with noise, but with precision. Do not let their laughter fool you. The wicked may plot, but the Lord still laughs. They may have mocked your faith, mocked your obedience, mocked your purity, but the mocking has ceased. Why? Because they are now watching everything they built on pride begin to sink. And no lifeboat can save them from divine judgment. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not foolish for staying silent. You were wise. You were protected. You were chosen. And because of that, every tongue that rose against you is now silenced by the weight of divine justice. You are not rising alone. You are rising with favor, with authority, with dignity. You are rising because purpose cannot be buried and the oil on your life cannot be stolen. Every silent tear you cried became a seed of vengeance in the hands of the Most High. Every sleepless night became a trumpet blast in heaven's courtroom. And now the verdict has been released. Your enemy is losing everything quietly. There will be no parade announcing it, no crowds to witness it, but you will feel it. You will sense the shift. You will notice the reversal, and they will know that it wasn't your hand that caused it, but the one who fights for the righteous. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them sit in silence as they experience what it feels like to lose without understanding why. And you? Keep walking in humility, keep serving in purpose, keep shining in integrity because your vindication is here and your peace has come. This is your divine reversal. They hurt you, but now they are losing everything quietly. Your stillness in the face of betrayal is not weakness, it's spiritual warfare. When you refuse to fight back in the flesh, you allow God to fight in the spirit. Exodus 14:14 declares, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Your silence activates divine intervention. God responds with a strategy that confuses your enemies and silences their pride without you ever raising your voice. They thought you were defenseless, but your restraint allowed heaven to move with precision. When God chooses to deal with your enemies quietly, it's a sign that judgment has reached a higher level. It's not about public embarrassment, it's about divine removal. They begin to lose influence, favor, finances, relationships without explanation. Psalm 37:13 says, "The Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming." That day has come, but it's not loud. It's surgical, strategic, final. Those who plotted against you underestimated the price of touching a person with divine purpose. When someone intentionally wounds a chosen vessel, they trigger a spiritual consequence they cannot outrun. Proverbs 16:18 warns, "Pride goes before destruction." They thought they could handle you, manipulate you, and discard you, but their hands touched destiny. And now divine loss is quietly stripping them of everything they once relied on. When it seems like heaven is quiet after you've been wronged, it's not abandonment, it's planning. God does not rush. He waits for the right moment to respond, not just to restore you, but to reposition you. While your enemies keep moving with blind confidence, God is aligning every detail to elevate you and dismantle them in silence. What they don't realize is that the absence of noise is actually the sound of heaven working. There's something sacred about silence, something powerful that many people misunderstand. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, submission, or even defeat. But in the spiritual realm, silence can be one of the most powerful weapons in the hands of the righteous. When someone hurts you, betrays you, slanders your name, or plots against your peace, the natural response is to react, to defend yourself, to expose the wrong, to seek justice in your own way. But when you are truly walking in divine alignment, you come to understand that sometimes the greatest strength is in stillness. Not because you don't have the words, not because you don't have the proof, but because you recognize that there's a higher court, a greater judge, a more powerful defender, the one who knows the thoughts and intents of every heart. When you choose to stay silent in the face of harm, you're not staying silent because you're unaware or incapable. You're staying silent because you've surrendered the matter to the one who sees all, hears all, and repays all. You've chosen not to fight on their level because you know your elevation does not come through retaliation, it comes through revelation. And that revelation is this: when God fights for you, your silence becomes a weapon. It becomes a declaration of trust, a bold statement of faith. You are telling heaven, I won't touch what you've already claimed. I won't fight what you've already judged. I won't interfere with the battle that belongs to you. Exodus 14:14 speaks this truth with piercing clarity. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness is not inaction. It is confidence. It is obedience. It is a weapon in the hands of the righteous. The stillness of a chosen one speaks volumes in the spiritual realm. It provokes a response from heaven. And when heaven moves, no man, no enemy, no system, and no witchcraft can stand in its way. Stillness invites divine strategy. And that divine strategy is often executed in silence, not with shouts, not with threats, but with surgical precision that no human hand could orchestrate. The enemy that hurt you didn't expect you to go quiet. They expected retaliation, they expected drama, they expected a response that would match their chaos, but instead you bowed out, you didn't engage, you walked away with dignity. And that confused them because evil expects to provoke evil. Pride expects to awaken pride. But when humility shows up instead, it becomes a mirror. It reflects back to them the very darkness they tried to bury you with. And in that reflection, they begin to fall quietly, gradually, without any announcement. Your silence became a courtroom. While they were talking behind your back, laughing at your downfall, mocking your stillness, you were laying your case before heaven. While they were gathering evidence to destroy your name, heaven was gathering evidence to seal their judgment. And you didn't need to say a word. You just needed to stay positioned, stay covered, stay quiet, because your stillness was the signal that your defender was stepping in, the one who neither sleeps nor slumbers, the one who weighs every motive and repays every injustice in full. And what a terrifying thing it is to be on the wrong side of that kind of justice. When God takes up your cause, he does not need to make a scene. He doesn't need to post it online. He doesn't need to scream to prove a point. He just begins quietly, removing favor, closing doors, exposing hearts, drying up resources, turning allies into strangers. And the very people who once laughed at your silence begin to experience a silence of their own, a silence in their prayers, a silence in their relationships, a silence in their influence, the silence of being judged by heaven. The irony is that while your silence looked like a loss, it was really your protection. It was your shield. If you had fought in the flesh, you would have forfeited the spiritual inheritance that was coming to you. But because you let go, because you remained still, because you held your peace, heaven responded. And it didn't just protect you. It elevated you. It shifted you. It positioned you in places your enemies can't reach, can't explain, and can't touch. Because your silence was not silence, it was strategy, divine strategy. And now those who hurt you don't understand what's happening. They're watching you thrive in silence. They're seeing doors open for you that they tried to shut. They're watching favor chase you while trouble chases them. And they can't trace it. They can't explain it because it didn't happen in a human way. It happened in the spirit. It happened because you chose not to respond, not to curse, not to react, not to retaliate. You let your dignity speak. And heaven echoed your dignity with vindication. There's a spiritual law at play here. Those who touch the righteous without cause touch fire. And when that fire is kindled by your obedience and silence, it doesn't burn you. It burns them quietly, swiftly, without public drama, without external notice. Because God is not interested in putting on a show. He's interested in justice, righteousness, honor, order. And he will always honor the one who holds their peace while trusting in his plan. So to the one reading this who has suffered in silence, your silence has been speaking. Your tears have been prayers. Your stillness has been worship. And your restraint has been your spiritual roar. Don't doubt what heaven has seen. Don't underestimate what God is doing behind the veil. He fights differently. He judges differently. He vindicates differently. And he will do it all without you lifting a finger. Because when you choose stillness, you don't lose the battle. You win it on a level the enemy can't touch. That is your power. That is your weapon. And that is why the enemy that hurt you is losing everything, quietly. There is a kind of judgment that doesn't make noise, yet it leaves permanent marks. A kind that moves so quietly, it's almost invisible to the natural eye, but devastating in its effect. It's not the kind of judgment where the world stops and watches. No, it's far more surgical than that. It's strategic. It's designed not for spectacle, but for complete Irreversible impact. That's the kind of judgment God often chooses when dealing with those who hurt his chosen ones. It's not loud, but it is lethal to pride, influence, and position. This is what we mean when we say quiet judgment is more devastating than public exposure. Because when God judges silently, the fallout is deeper than any scandal could ever produce. Those who wronged you, those who betrayed you, who slandered your name and smiled while doing it, they often expected a dramatic aftermath. Perhaps they thought you would break down, or maybe they expected to hear that you lost your position, your influence, your strength. But instead, the silence after their betrayal confused them. They interpreted it as escape. They assumed they had won. They thought heaven had overlooked their actions. But the silence was not mercy, it was timing. There's a particular danger when a person mistakes God's silence for approval. Just because the sky didn't crack open the moment they betrayed you doesn't mean God didn't notice. Just because there were no lightning bolts or immediate consequences doesn't mean heaven shrugged its shoulders. No, heaven was watching. God in his wisdom often lets pride build its own gallows. Like Haman in the book of Esther, who thought he was building a trap for someone else, but was unknowingly constructing his own downfall. That's how divine justice often works. It lets the wicked hang themselves with their own arrogance. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. Psalm 37, 12, 13. That scripture isn't poetic, it's prophetic. It's a reminder that God is never absent, he is never oblivious, and he is never out of options. When the wicked plot, heaven laughs, not because betrayal is amusing, but because divine justice is inevitable. The day of reckoning is always on the calendar, even if no one else sees it coming. And when it comes quietly, it cuts the deepest. God knows how to touch what man cannot see. He knows how to shift a person's influence, slowly drain their resources, subtly unravel their relationships, and disturb their peace, all without making a sound. This is the quiet judgment. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need an audience, but it finishes what pride began. The one who thought they were untouchable begins to feel like everything they once had is slipping through their fingers. Their connections grow cold. Their voice loses authority. Their name no longer carries weight, and they can't explain why. That's because it's not a natural failure. It's a divine removal. Public exposure may humiliate, but quiet judgment dismantles. It's the slow divine unraveling that cannot be stopped by apologies or clever manipulation. Once God begins to deal with someone silently, they are left confused and frustrated because no amount of charm, influence, or effort can reverse what heaven has decreed. This is how God handles those who sow destruction in secret. He repays them in silence, making every move calculated and final. For the one who has been wronged, this type of divine response is the most satisfying because it doesn't require your involvement. You don't have to gather proof. You don't have to fight for your reputation. You don't even have to respond to the rumors. You simply stand in righteousness and let the silence speak for you. And over time, you begin to see the fruit. You notice that the same person who once tried to destroy you no longer walks with the same favor. The alliances they built on lies are falling apart. Their platform is shrinking. Their peace is disturbed. And all of this happens without your voice being lifted. This kind of judgment also protects your witness because when God handles it, you stay clean. You didn't get bitter. You didn't get vindictive. You remained silent, and that silence became your shield. Now, while the enemy is unraveling, your integrity is intact. You are preserved while they are being exposed, not through scandal, but through divine consequence. And what makes quiet judgment even more powerful is that it reveals the true source of promotion and favor. People begin to notice that something is different. They may not know all the details, but they can feel the shift. And when asked, all you can say is, I stayed silent and let God handle it. That testimony speaks louder than any confrontation ever could, because it's proof that when you let God judge in His way and in His time, He does it with excellence, with completeness, with justice that cannot be overturned. Some may wish for public vindication. They want their enemies to be embarrassed and exposed in front of crowds. But quiet judgment is actually more powerful, because when judgment is silent, it reaches areas public shame never could. It humbles without humiliation. It strips without noise. And it causes the enemy to reflect more deeply, because they don't know who saw what, or how their favor disappeared, or when the door started closing. All they know is that what they used to rely on is gone, and nothing they do can bring it back. That's when you know divine judgment has taken over. And the best part, while they are losing everything quietly, you are gaining everything silently. You're being restored, elevated, strengthened, all in silence. You're not broadcasting it. You're not trying to prove anything. And yet, heaven is backing you. Favor is following you. Peace is guarding you. That is the beauty of divine justice. It doesn't just tear down, it builds up. While the proud are being quietly judged, the faithful are being quietly lifted. So if you've ever been wronged and felt like God didn't respond, trust that He did. He may not have responded loudly, but He responded strategically, and His strategy is perfect, because when He judges quietly, nothing is missed and no one escapes. The one who hurt you may still be smiling in public, but they're weeping in private. Because what's happening in their life can only be explained by one thing: they touched the wrong one. And now God is responding, not with noise, but with undeniable power. There's a divine principle woven throughout the entire tapestry of scripture and spiritual law. When someone lays hands, words, or intentions against a person chosen for purpose, they do not just offend that individual. They provoke the judgment of the one who sent them. Those who hurt a chosen one do not understand the price they are triggering. They think they're attacking a person, when in fact they are interfering with a purpose. And when you touch a divine assignment with malicious intent, there is always a cost, always. Whether it happens immediately or over time, whether it unfolds publicly or quietly behind the scenes, the law of recompense does not fail. The consequences may delay, but they never disappear. This is what the enemy never fully grasps. They see you in human form, so they assume you're just another person, another obstacle, another target. They don't realize that what you carry is not of your own making. The grace on your life isn't man-made. The favor on your path isn't based on status or reputation. It's based on assignment. You were chosen, marked, and anointed to fulfill a calling. And when someone rises up to oppose you, slander you, betray you, or wound you intentionally, they are doing so not just against your flesh, but against divine destiny. And heaven does not allow that kind of interference to go unaddressed. The tragedy is those who hurt you never consider the consequences. Their pride blinds them. Their ego convinces them they'll get away with it. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." It's a warning not just to the arrogant, but to those who exalt themselves against the plans of God. The fall never looks like the attack. It often comes in ways they never expect. It comes through a slow unraveling of their influence, a silent withdrawal of favor. Relationships that once supported them now distance themselves. Success they once manipulated into their hands now turns into dust. And they're left wondering what happened when in truth it all began when they touched the wrong person with the wrong intention. It's not about revenge. It's about principle. There is a spiritual consequence attached to harming someone who belongs to divine purpose. Even if the world justifies their actions, even if no one defends your name, the spiritual realm is never silent. Every betrayal was recorded. Every false accusation was weighed. Every private scheme against you was observed. And the response of heaven may not be noise, but it is justice. Many people have mistaken kindness for weakness. They look at the one they hurt and assume silence means consent. They confuse humility with helplessness. But what they fail to understand is that the one they were mocking, dismissing, and betraying was covered by something far greater than human applause, covered by a divine covenant. They didn't just lie on you, they violated a sacred assignment. And now they must answer not to you, but to the one who called you. There's a reason the fall of the wicked often feels silent, slow, and confusing to them, because the loss isn't always material. It's spiritual. They lose peace. They lose clarity. They lose their ability to influence and control. The very things they used to try and manipulate or harm others begin to backfire. What was once their strength now becomes their downfall. Not because someone cursed them, but because they cursed themselves by touching what was holy. This truth is both a warning and a comfort. A warning to those who operate in pride, thinking they can disrupt purpose without consequence. But a comfort to those who have suffered in silence, who have endured betrayal from people they loved, trusted, and served. You don't have to make it right. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to defend yourself, because the weight of heaven's justice is heavier than any response you could ever give. God takes it personally when someone attacks His chosen. Not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. Not because you're flawless, but because you're assigned. He saw your tears. He heard the conversations you weren't invited to. He witnessed the plans that were made against your peace. And while the enemy celebrated your silence, heaven was preparing your vindication. The pain you endured did not go unnoticed, and the judgment against those who caused it is unfolding in ways they cannot trace, reverse, or escape. Often the enemy won't even realize why they're losing. They'll look around and wonder why things are falling apart, why doors are closing, why opportunities are drying up. It's because they sowed seeds of destruction into the life of someone who was anointed. And when you sow destruction into purpose, you reap divine loss. That's the price. The loss may not be immediate, but it is inevitable, because the laws of the Spirit do not lie. This should also awaken a deep humility in every chosen one. Because the assignment on your life isn't for you, it's for others. And because of that, God protects you differently. He disciplines you differently. And yes, He defends you differently. You may not have the luxury of responding to your enemies the way others do. You may have to walk away when everything in you wants to retaliate. You may have to forgive when everything in you wants justice. But trust this. Heaven keeps score. And when you are mistreated while walking in obedience, the vindication you receive will not just lift you, it will remove everything that tried to destroy you. So don't be surprised when those who hurt you begin to lose things they can't explain. Don't be shocked when the very ones who tried to bury your name begin to disappear quietly from places of influence. It's not your doing, it's divine order. The cost of touching a chosen one isn't always immediate, but it is always devastating, because destiny is protected, purpose is defended, and those who war against it ultimately war against God Himself. That is why right now, even as you read this, the ones who caused your deepest wounds are experiencing losses they cannot speak of. They're being judged in silence. And not because you wished it, but because the laws of heaven are at work. You stayed clean, you remained silent, you held your peace, and now heaven is holding court. Those who touched your calling without honor are now facing a consequence they never anticipated. Divine loss delivered without noise. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when it feels like heaven has gone silent. You've prayed, you've cried, you've sought answers, you've waited for a sign, for a breakthrough, for some evidence that God heard you, but all you get is silence. No voice, no movement, no shift. And in that silence, the mind begins to wander. Questions arise, doubts creep in. You begin to ask yourself, did God leave me? Did He abandon me? Why is He not responding? But what you must come to understand is this: the silence of heaven is never absence. It is divine strategy. God never leaves His own. He never turns His back on the ones He has chosen. What appears to be quietness is actually the sound of a sovereign plan being executed with perfect precision. When heaven is silent, God is not asleep, He is working. When He seems quiet, He is watching. When He appears distant, He is designing. Just because He hasn't answered yet doesn't mean He hasn't moved. His silence is not neglect. It is the calm before divine justice. It is the breath he takes before releasing a judgment so accurate that no human intervention is needed. It is the quiet that comes before a storm of restoration and reversal. God's silence is sacred. It is where he does his best work, away from noise, out of sight, beyond the reach of your enemies. You see, the people who hurt you, who disrespected your kindness, who slandered your name behind closed doors, who mocked your values and integrity, when they did all that and heaven didn't respond immediately, they thought they got away with it. They believed your silence was weakness and heaven's silence was permission. But they misunderstood the nature of divine timing. God's strategy is not reactionary. It is calculated. When he remains quiet, he's not inactive. He's just allowing time to expose the hidden heart of the enemy. He's giving them rope. And while they believe they are in control, he's letting their own pride write the script for their downfall. This is why those who walk in divine purpose must learn to trust the silence. It takes more faith to walk through quiet seasons than it does to celebrate answered prayers. Silence stretches your spirit. It teaches you to discern the unseen. It trains your eyes to perceive movement without noise. It cultivates spiritual maturity, because when you know who God is, you don't need him to always speak to believe he is moving. His history is enough. His faithfulness is enough. His track record is enough. And if he's done it before, he will do it again, even in silence. Heaven's silence also protects you from unnecessary warfare. Sometimes God stays quiet because he's shifting things behind the scenes. He's orchestrating conversations you'll never hear. He's canceling assignments against you that you'll never see. He's removing people from your life without drama, without confrontation, without public exposure. When he is quiet, he is removing traps laid by your enemies. He is stripping them of access. He is cutting off their supply, and they don't even know it's happening. By the time they realize they're losing ground, it's already too late. They've already been removed from the seat of influence. They've already lost the favor they tried to use against you. The enemy that wounded you, who thought they could manipulate, control, or silence you, is now being silenced by heaven, but not in the way the world expects. No public spectacle, no thunder from the sky, just a quiet, consistent dismantling of everything they trusted in. What they built on dishonor is now collapsing, and they don't know who to blame, because it's not you, it's the silent hand of God. The same silence they once mocked is now their undoing. And you didn't have to move a muscle. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't have to defend yourself. You just had to stand still and stay in alignment. The strategy of heaven is never random. It's always designed for maximum effect with minimum exposure. God doesn't just want to vindicate you. He wants to elevate you without staining your hands. He wants your story to reflect purity, honor, and divine timing. That's why he didn't let you respond. That's why he told you to stay silent. That's why he delayed your breakthrough until it couldn't be mistaken for coincidence. Because when he moves in silence, the outcome is undeniable. No one can question it. No one can claim credit for it. And no one can reverse it. So many times people want loud justice. They want God to shame their enemies in front of the world. But divine justice is not always public. It is permanent. It's the quiet exit of those who plotted your downfall. It's the closed doors they can no longer open. It's the peace they cannot buy back. It's the influence they can't recover. That's the power of strategic silence. God does not need noise to be effective. He just needs time. And when time is complete, the outcome speaks louder than any voice ever could. This is your assurance today. God's silence has not been a denial. It has been your protection. You were hidden for a reason. You were silenced for a season. But now, the same silence that felt like isolation is turning into your shield. The enemy can't locate you. The people who hurt you can't reach you. And the ones who counted you out are watching your rise in confusion, because they didn't realize silence was your strategy, and heaven's too. When God is silent, he is not passive, he is not distant. He is exacting a judgment that does not need noise. He is working a reversal that does not require explanation. And he is lifting you in a way that no enemy can interfere with. That is why the ones who wounded you are losing everything. quietly. Not because you asked for it, not because you prayed for their downfall, but because they dared to touch something that God called his own. So if you're in a silent season, hold your peace, stay in position. Do not misinterpret the quiet. Heaven has heard you, heaven has seen you, and heaven is responding, not with thunder, but with strategy, not with noise, but with justice. And when it's all said and done, you will look back and realize that the silence you feared was the greatest protection you ever had. Because when heaven goes quiet, it's not retreating. It's preparing to deliver judgment so complete that your enemies will have no choice but to watch everything they used against you dissolve without a sound.